We are 6 months into the year. Summer is upon us. We are in the song of the summer era. Man, have y'all been checking out the music of 2024? Music is musicking. There is so much music being released this year. And we're only halfway through. But right now, let's get into the Billboard. We are looking at the week ending in June 22nd of this week's Billboard 200 Weekly Update Review with your boy EJ of Justatboiandhiscamera. This week's Billboard 200 sees seven debuts onto the tally. We see these albums giving artists their first time entries. We see them getting their first time leaders on multiple charts. Hell, some of them just land for the first time on multiple charts. Come on. That's what I like to see when I look at the Billboard 200. Who shook it up? That's what makes these Billboard reviews that much better. So let's go ahead and kick off this week's Billboard with who else other than Miss Taylor Swift. Yes, the Tortured Poets Department album spends its 8th consecutive week at #1. What? Nobody has been able to knock her off of the 200 tally. That is insane. Is it though? The Tortured Poets Department album was brilliant. And then you put a brilliant album with a brilliant marketing team and you get an unstoppable 8-week force known as Taylor Swift. The Tortured Poets Department album. Yes. This is the first album to spend its first 8 weeks on top of the Billboard 200 since March 2023, when Morgan Wallen spent his first 12 weeks at #1. Welcome back, longevity. Who can stay at #1 the longest? These charts been flip-flopping more than some folks changed their draws. We have some stability in T-Swizzle. This is her career record extending 76 week at the top of the Billboard 200. She is the #1 artist with the most weeks because the #2 person is dead. No, but he is. Elvis Presley is second with 67. And unless we're going to start streaming his music and getting him to the top of the charts, Taylor Swift ain't got no issue right now. Of the last 14 albums put out by Taylor Swift, the Tortured Poets Department ties Folklore with 8 weeks atop of the Billboard 200. Only her 1989 and Fearless albums have more weeks at 11 apiece. Can the Tortured Poets Department become her longest reigning champion on the Billboard 200? But I'm not sure who's releasing the album that can knock her off. Wait, when's Eminem dropping again? It's gonna come down to Eminem. He is known to break women's hearts. Let's see what happens. But let's go ahead and dig into this week's Billboard 200. Is your fave winning? So once again, claiming her 8th week at #1 is Taylor Swift with the Tortured Poets Department album. It earns 127,000 equivalent album units this week, and 103,000 of them are from streaming. So she lands atop of the streaming albums chart for a 8th consecutive week also. Baby, this woman has multiple entries on the Billboard 200, multiple entries on the Hot 100, multiple entries on the top album sales. This baby, you pull up a chart, her name is somewhere on it. And I am not surprised that this baby spends the record extending 113th week atop of the Artist 100 tally as the best performing artist of Billboard this week. I don't even know who else could stop her at this point. Even if Eminem did drop his album, could that one album stop Taylor? Billie Eilish Hit Me Hard and Soft is putting up massive numbers, but it has yet to be able to overtake Taylor Swift. She rebounds back to the peak position at number 2, becoming the runner-up album on the Billboard 200. She earns an additional 105,000 equivalent album units. These numbers give Billie Eilish her 4th consecutive week on top of the top alternative albums chart and the top rock and alternative albums charts. This brings us to our first Billboard 200 debut of the week, and she bows in at number 3 with 77,000 equivalent album units. This is her best sales weeks to date of her career. It's also her best performances across multiple Billboard charts this week. Give it up for Charli XCX as she sees her album Brad debut at number 3, which beats out her previous best peaking position, which was number 7. This is her 2nd top 10 charting album of the Billboard 200. Of the 77 equivalent album units, 40,000 of them are in pure sales. So she finds herself debuting inside of the top 10 on the top album sales chart, landing at number 3, earning her 2nd top 10 on that chart as well. So I know when Taylor Swift dropped Torture's Poet Department album, a lot of people was like, is that normal to have 19 variants of an album? Well, I finally broken down all 4 weeks of June's Billboard data, and yes, it is actually getting more normal to see high variant numbers of albums, especially with vinyls, as I guess they're a collector's item again. So in any case, Charli XCX album was available across 14 different vinyl variations. 14. Well, I guess having 14 variations did the girl some good, because she goes on to sell 30,000 vinyl albums, which makes her number 1 on the vinyl albums chart. This is her first career leader on this tally. So come through, Miss Charli XCX. The celebration doesn't stop there for Miss XCX either. She also sees her new album, Brad, bow in at the top of the top dance electronic albums chart, dethroning Miss Lady Gaga, the Fame, who just spent her 193rd week at number 1 last week. What? We're going to have to take a pause and end that chart run real quick, because Charli wants to start her reign. Whether it be for a week or for multiple weeks, I'm not sure. But for now, Charli XCX is the queen of the dance electronic charts. This is also Charli XCX's first career leader for this tally. In addition to the 14 variations of the vinyl record, it was also released as a standard CD, a signed CD, a deluxe CD that you could get with a t-shirt via her website. It was reissued as a deluxe CD. It had the digital version. If you wanted to get this album, you had plenty of options. This massive week for her brings her back to the Artist 100 chart, re-entering at number 6. This is Charli XCX's highest charting position on the Artist 100 to date. Morgan Wallen's One Thing at a Time is a non-mover at number 4, earning 72,000 additional equivalent album units this week, and it remains atop of the Hot Country albums for a 52nd week. And this brings us to our 2nd debut, and it comes from a legendary band. They've been around since the 1980s. And they bow in at number 5 as their new album Forever, earning 50,000 equivalent album units, giving Bon Jovi their 14th top 10 charting album on the 200. Now, what's even more impressive is that 48,000 of the 50,000 are pure sales. Talking about having your fans go and get your physical copy. Streaming is almost non-existent for the album completely, which probably hinders them the most and getting more of a debut in their first week. Y'all, streaming matters. You can't have one without the other. As I continue breaking down these Billboard weekly reviews, you will see how they each help each other out, and artists who don't have the other one don't always perform as well with artists that have both. In some cases, it is possible, but in most cases, they are the exception to the rule and not the rule itself. Bon Jovi will also bow at the #1 position on the top album sales chart, earning the 5th career leader, which takes them over to the top rock albums chart, where they also will be leading this week, and they are their 6th #1 album on the top rock albums chart. The Forever album was available across 11 vinyl variants, which ended up selling 8,000 copies. That's enough to land at #5 on the vinyl albums chart this week, giving them their first entry and their first top 10 on this tally. You could be around forever. You can still be getting your first entry onto a Billboard chart. That is insane, but that's the beauty of music, and you can keep on achieving. The album also was available across 4 CD editions, your digital download, your streaming edition. They even re-entered the Artist 100 tally, becoming the 5th best performing artist of the week on Billboard. This 5th place placement is their best charting position to date. Longevity, legendary, legends. Bon Jovi has a career total of 20 entries on the top album sales list. And over on the Billboard 200 tally, Forever is their 22nd charting album. This group has notched a top 10 on the Billboard 200 in the 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s, and now the 2020s. They are now the fifth group to earn a new top 10 charting album in each of the last 5 decades. Last 5 decades. This band's been banding. They joined AC/DC, Def Leppard, U2, and Metallica as the only artists to perform this feat. So last week's top selling album, 80s, The Golden Hour, does slip into the #6 position. They earned an additional 45,000 equivalent album units, and 43,000 of them, which is like 95.6%, are in pure sales. They have the 2nd best-selling album of the week. It continues to lead the Billboard World Albums chart for a 2nd week. The #7 position is held by Morgan Wallen, as his Dangerous, the double album, earns an additional 44,000 units. And at #8, we see Noah Kahan's The Stick Season. It earns 42,000 additional units, and it rebounds to the top of Americana Folk Albums chart for a 21st week. He over there running the thing. He's running the game. Sabuzi's album, Where I've Been Isn't Where I'm Going, backtracks to the 9th position this week after debuting at #5. Earns 41,000 equivalent units, and it still maintains its lead on top of the independent albums chart for a 2nd week. Go ahead, Sabuzi. This is his 3rd album and first to chart. I guess we got to say thank you, Beyonce. He said, thank you, Miss Carter. I am so happy for this next artist. I remember back in April when I recorded my last Billboard update before everything went on hiatus and I had to go and take care of myself, that this artist was charting in the lower region of the Billboard charts. And now, following multiple performances, one at Coachella and the other one at the Governor's Ball, Miss Chaparral Ron, she ascends to her highest peaking position to date. This week finds her rising from the 12th position to the 10th position, which breaks her into the top 10 for the first time. This album came out in September of 2023 and is just now breaking into the top 10. Just now, over the last couple weeks, getting momentum and surging up the Billboard 200. Don't ever give up on your dreams. It will happen. She also breaks into the top 10 on the top album sales chart. She ascends from the 17th position last week to the 9th position this week, selling 7,000 copies of her album, which is an increase of 63%. Y'all better go buy that album, and if you ain't buying it, go stream it. You might find a song or two that you like. Have an open mind. These are her best charting positions to date, and of course she earns her first top 10s on both of these charts. Alright, so that was your top 10. So let's look at some highlights of people who didn't make the top 10. Because everybody can't make the top 10. Hell, there's only 10 positions. So at number 11 is Future and Metro Boomin's We Don't Trust You. I bring this up because it does lead the top rap albums chart for a 7th week. I don't know how often this happens and what's the coincidence that it happened this week, but we have two albums from two totally different artists with the same name. If that's not ironic enough, they literally chart right behind the other. Right. I've reviewed a lot of Billboard charts, and that feat I ain't never seen. But at any rate, it happens this week. The first of the two is Miss Meghan Trainor. Her album Timeless debuts at number 27. She earns 25,000 equivalent album units. 12,000 are in pure album sales. She lands at number 6 on the top album sales chart this week, earning her 5th top 10 and 8th overall chart entry. Megan's album Timeless also sees its best vinyl sales ever. By selling 3,000 vinyl records during the tracking period, she bows at the 13th position on the vinyl albums chart this week and earns her second top 20. As I said, this is starting to be the norm. This album was supported by 11 vinyl variants, 5 CD variants, a standard digital download, a deluxe, and later on, after it already debuted, 2 additional deluxe versions were released. But this brings us to our second Timeless debut. So there's another artist who sees his album Timeless debut onto the Billboard 200. Kaytranada's 4th album, Timeless, debuts at number 28, and he earns his first top 40 entry. But that's not the only place that you can find Kaytranada's Timeless album. No, he would take the runner-up positions on both the top dance electronic albums and the top R&B albums. This is his 3rd and 2nd top 10 on each chart respectively. You'll find him on one more chart. He lands at number 6 atop of the top R&B hip hop albums chart, earning his first top 10 on the tally. No matter how long you've been in the game, you can still earn your first on a chart. Woo! At 55, making his debut is Ski Mask the Slump God. His album, The 11th Dimension, earns him his 5th charting album on the 200. You can also find him debuting on the top rap albums and top R&B hip hop albums at 11th and 15th respectively. This gives him his 3rd top 20 on both charts. History making moment. Well, this week's history-making artist is Tems. She debuts her studio album, Born in the Wild. It lands at 56, earning 11,000 equivalent album units. This makes her the highest charting female Nigerian artist ever on the 200, breaking the record that was set by Araya Star just last week. Talking about not holding a record for long. The album will debut at number 2 on the Billboard World Albums chart. Also debut at number 5 on the top R&B albums chart. So last week we saw the Marias debut the Submarine album at 17 on the Billboard charts, and baby, this week it takes a dive. Woo! Like Taylor Swift jumping off the stage in the Eras tour. Woo! It dropped 79 positions and lands at 96 this week. Well, if y'all want to help support the album, give it a couple streams or two. Welcome back. Y'all been gone for a while. I've been gone for so long, and it's time to bring it back. Hey! Enough cannot be said truer for the next debuting artist on the Billboard 200. It is the duo No Worries, and they are Anderson .Paak and Knowledge. If they sound familiar, but you just can't quite put your brain on it, it's at the tip of your tongue, but you just don't know where you've seen them before, well, it's because in 2016, they were No Worries, and they dropped their first studio album together called Yes, Lord. And 8 years later, they are back again. Their new studio album, Why Lord, does debut onto the 200. So that's a good thing, because it's been 8 years since the last time we seen them. It debuts at 104. And the reason why it debuts so low is because the album was not even available for streaming until the following week. Despite only being available by physical means, the album will debut on the top R&B albums list, where it bows at number 11, earning their second top 20 on the chart. And while it barely makes the combined R&B hip-hop albums list, it will earn the duo its second top 40 as it lands at 36. By selling 11,000 copies of the album, it does debut at number 7 on the top album sales chart, but it was over on the vinyl albums chart that they would have their best performance. Out of the 11,000 copies sold, 9,000 was on a vinyl, which makes them the number 4 vinyl album this week. This is their first entry on this chart. The album was supported by 5 vinyl variants, a CD, and a cassette. And while, yes, 104 may not seem that impressive, they emerged at the top of the emerging artist list for the first time, for their first week at number 1. They are the highest charting, best of the best emerging artists this week. So that's an impressive feat, even without the streaming. Ooh, we're going back to the 2000s. Sad to say, but this next artist has struggled in her first week. It didn't seem like it was going to be this bad. I was watching the news. Her album is critically acclaimed. The critics were saying that she was going to do great things. The album was albuming. It was giving what the people, I guess, wanted. But it doesn't reflect in this week's first week's performance. So it's been a little over 3 years since this artist has even charted on the Billboard 200. This latest album is her worst charting album ever in her career on the 200. Now, you can definitely go up from here because you can't go no further down. Well, you can, but the best thing about landing so low is that if you stream, if you buy, the album can always start climbing. Look at Chaparral Ron. So this is not the ending of all news, but this is a reality check that her marketing team may have to do a little bit something to get these sales going, get the people flowing onto the streaming apps to see what this album is giving. But regardless, and at any rate, the album is out, it is streaming everywhere, and Carly Pearce, the Hummingbird, does chart on the 200, because there is albums that do miss the 200 altogether, even from legendary artists. New album, The Hummingbird, debut at 158. Like I said, it ain't the worst. I've seen somebody debut at 196. So she could definitely go up from here. But she does, yes. Her newest effort does bow onto the 200 at the 158th position. But we shall see if she can jump up the chart next week or completely fall off and don't earn a second week onto the chart. I'll be standing by. She will go on to earn her fourth top 40 entry on the top country albums chart, as the album does land at 31. She does earn her best charting performance on the top album sales chart, as it lands at number 16, her third top 20 entry onto this chart. So the artist Huncho, who was featured on Billboard's Artists to Watch list back in February of 2024, has officially charted onto the 200. His newly released album, Before the Album, debuts at 197. Yep, 197. I told you, you can go lower. So the Hummingbird, you got some room to wriggle. But this one, you ain't got much room to wriggle. But it does, regardless, land at 196, and it's his first entry onto the 200. The #1 blues album for a fourth week in a row is nowhere on the Billboard 200, but I thought I'd give it a shout out, and that is Slash's Orgy of the Damned. Let's talk about albums that are charting. I mean charting. You talking about longevity. We have 3 albums that are at milestone achievements. The first, we see Bob Seger and the Silver Bullet Band spend their 525th week on the Billboard 200 at the 138th position. R&B artist, the dark horse, maybe the underdog, Bryson Tiller. His album Soul Trap spends its 375th week on the Billboard 200 at 94. Our last shout out goes to Miss Billie Eilish herself, as Happier Than Ever, still charting on the Billboard 200 150 weeks later after its debut, and it lands at 177 this week. Well, folks, them are the best and the hottest albums of this week. This has been your boy EJ, and we are now moving into the hottest singles, hottest songs of the week. It's Justatboiandhiscamera. Stay with me